Hello everyone, welcome to MoonFire Studios. Today we are going to do this element called a flip card. Normally I use the die that you just saw from Gemini Crafter's Companion. It creates this element that is in this book that I have for sale on the website moonfirestudios.shop. It is super cute. I love the way that it's interactive. You just pull and it flips. So today we are going to be making one of those, only really big, from scratch. I'm using our new digitals. It's a Japanese theme style. I'm going to use the samurai, and I've done a silhouette version of him also. Now for the element itself, I have two different types of wallpaper that are vintage. And for the base, I have a heavy cardstock that is solid core, which means it's black all the way through. So if you cut into it, there will not be any white on the inside. And I'm just seeing exactly how big I want him to be. And I think that the width of the wallpaper is really good for his size. And then I'm going to just mark on the wallpaper pieces where I want to cut. And then I'm going to cut them both at the same time. So would you guys cut them both at the same time, or would you do them individually? I'm kind of curious as to if you do it to save time, or you're particular and always cut things by themselves. I usually end up making one shorter than the other, so I just do them at the same time. And now I'm going to glue them onto the base. And I'm just using Fabri-Tac glue in a Sugar Bell bottle. I find that I like it a lot better because the spout is smaller, gives me more control. The bottle is easier to squeeze. And I chose the heavier cardstock as a base because since I'm making it large size, it needed to be more stable than just a piece of scrapbook paper. And here I'm using my guillotine to make one end square. And then I realized that it's still too big to fit in there. So I'm using my We Are Memory Keepers all-in-one tool, the Works. And it cut through just fine, but I have a little trick that I forgot to do there where I plunge it in to the cut a little bit and then I go up one side and then back down the other. It helps with not getting any snags in your project. Now this piece ends up being 8 inches by 9 inches, which is fairly large for this type of element. But I liked the size of the samurai, and as I work on my Oriental themed journal, I'm going to be using it as more of like not only an assemblage therapy, but also as a color therapy journal. So I'll be coloring our digitals in. If you would like videos of me doing different types of colorings, please let me know in the comments below this video. I will have the links for the Japanese style digitals in the shop as well. Now what I'm doing here, I'm using what's called a centering ruler. It has obviously the 0 line in the middle, and then it goes out one side to 6 inches, I believe, and then out to the other side 6 inches. So it's very useful for finding the centering of your page or the center of your project. And what I've done is with the top and the bottom orientation of the base, I've gone out a 1/2 inch on either side of the 0. And I've made a mark on the top and the bottom. And then what you're going to do is center or put your object that you want to be on the flip part. It can be up high, it can be down low, it can be in the middle. I chose roughly the middle. And then figure out what shape you want the flip to be. It can be a circle, it can be an oval, it can be a square, it can even be a triangle if you do the sections that hold on to it correctly. But whatever shape you choose, I just happened to find an oval that was on the side of my desk that worked pretty well. So I'm centering the oval where I want it to go, and you can also have the flaps on either side. One can be longer and one can be shorter. It doesn't need to be in the middle of your project. It's easier, but you can vary that as you go along and try different projects with it. Now, notice I am not going all the way around my object. I'm stopping at the stems that hold on to the flip part, that keep it attached to the base of the project. You certainly can go all the way around your shape, but just remember you're going to need to erase your lines where it connects to the top and the bottom, or cover them up with something. Or you can leave them if you like them there. Now what I'm doing here is I am connecting the top points with my shape so that I get a straight line all the way through the project. Because your flip won't work if the bottom or top is off center. They need to be lined up. And then what you want to do is you can take your craft knife and you can cut along the outline only to where it connects to the stem part on the top and the bottom. Now mine is very, very thick, so I went all the way along very, very slowly. Of course, this is sped up. I did not go that fast. I am not that adept at using my craft knife that way. And then go back the other way, and because it's thicker, you would need to make multiple cuts. I did not have that type of patience, because that's just me. So I got a mat, a squishy foam mat, and I used my pokey tool and just poked a few holes along the edge of my outline shape just to make a starter point for me to use my scissors. And then I just cut along the outside of my shape that's going to move. And you stop at the stem that holds it, and I did the same thing to the other side. So what you're left with is what looks like that, and then I just used my ruler to make the bends in the paper. You can use a scoring tool, you can use a stylus, whatever you like. I just did it this way because it helps me to keep them in line, and I can guarantee that it's straight. The thing that you want to remember though is you want to make your crease as crisp as possible. And then you're going to flip it over, and you will fold back from the other direction. So one fold will be towards you and the other fold will be away from you. Just make sure you burnish them really, really well so that they stay really nice and crisp. And now I knew, since this is thicker and I'm using vintage wallpaper on here, eventually the wallpaper will sort of crack as it keeps continually folding and unfolding. So that's the design that I wanted. I wanted it to look old and vintage already. And I'm just trimming up some of the edges where I think it may look a little rough, and getting rid of the rounded parts where I use the pokey tool on. If you like, you can certainly trim it down smaller so that there's more of a gap in between the base and your shape that's moving, but it's not necessary. And there's your flip part. If you put a pile of books or something heavy on top of it, it will help to flatten it out if it's thicker. If it's thinner, you can just use scrapbook paper and it will do the same thing. Now I'm taking my samurai and I'm just figuring out which side I want the one to color in on and which side I want the silhouette one on. So I think I figured out how I want them to be. And keep in mind, when it's closed, the opposite side is going to be showing around your shape. So if you have two different patterns, make sure you flip it to guarantee that you like the aesthetic. So I hope you guys are liking the Japanese digitals and the interactive elements that I'm showing you. If you do, just leave me a comment. If you don't, leave me a comment and tell me what you would like to see. Here I'm deciding whether I want to flip the silhouette around and have it facing the opposite direction. I'm just putting a dot of the Fabri-Tac on there, enough to hold it in place, so that I can flip it and see which version I like better. The Fabri-Tac, if you don't burnish it and you just kind of put a little bit on there, you can remove it and rub it off so that it doesn't stay on there. But once you burnish it, you kind of warm it up with your hands, it's stuck there. It's really, really super strong. But it also gives me a little bit of time to where I can move my objects around if I don't place them correctly. And I can also rub it off the edges. I've taken a corner rounder and rounded the corners on it. I think it made a little nicer transition from the oval on the inside to the sides, not being so harsh and 90-degree corners. And this is the paper that I've chosen for this particular page. My book will be 9 inches by 12 inches, so I can use a scrapbook page as a decorative element page. My scoring board, as you saw, doesn't go past 6 inches, I believe, but I just flipped my paper around. I rotated it so I could get the 3-inch score line on the side that I needed it to be. And again, this is with the floral on it. That is a vintage piece of wallpaper. And I'm using a shiny coated piece of red that I think went well with the other red wallpaper piece. And I'm just trimming my pocket to the size that I want it to be. And I'm making sure that I didn't go past the fold line. You can if you want to, but this particular paper, if you crease it that way, it doesn't go, it bunches. And then you also want to make sure you're slightly in from your fold line so that you can do whatever type of binding you want and it doesn't cause it to pop up. And I'm just doing a decorative tear only on the sides of the wallpaper because I want the straight lines to mimic the flip out. And I've also rounded the corners only on the red bottom part of the pocket. That will mimic the corners on the flip out. And I'm just going to glue the entire piece of wallpaper. I've brought it down a little bit so that it has the aesthetic that I like. I like the little bit of trim of red on the top and the wallpaper hanging down over the bottom. But that's just my personal style. What kind of pockets do you like? Do you like when they're neat and tidy or slightly askew or layered? Now I'm just making sure that it fits in how I want it to and it doesn't go up too high or down too low because I do want to decorate the rest of the page. I just haven't figured out how yet. I'll save that for when I work in my journal. But as you saw, it still has a small footprint, so you can still put a lot of pages on there. This is the other element that I've done previously. It's a waterfall with the bonsai digital on it. I will link that up in the corner. That one is also made from scratch. So I'm doing these this way in case you don't have access to a die cut machine or you can't get the dies. And you can size these to any size that you need. Really small, really big. But that's that. And I hope you guys really liked it. And I will see you the next time. If you like the digitals, they are available at moonfirestudios.shop. Thanks. Bye.